Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's live investor agent webinar, and welcome aboard also to all of you who've been in any of the other training programs, whether it's flipping for profits, rental profits, or turning rental problems into real estate profits, which was our management course, or wholesaling, which is the newest one. Welcome aboard to all of you. Also, welcome to all of the new agents from the most recent areas, which would be California and Texas, and then prior to that, Louisiana. And then prior to that, Georgia, excuse me, and some other locations like Tennessee, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. Welcome aboard to all you guys. We've got veterans on board, so this is a good chance to ask questions because I can tap the experience of our veteran students also. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you're new to this is a live webinar. Completely unscripted, so you're going to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is good for you. Also, we are recording, and if you're listening to this in recording mode, obviously you weren't able to make it live, and that's okay. We understand that. That's why we record them. So for those of you who are new, the way you post questions, you look on your panel, you'll have a question box, and you type them in there, and I'm going to keep scanning those, and I'll bring them up as I see them in intervals, like every couple of minutes we'll take a break. Also, excuse me, keep an eye out for an email tomorrow from Beverly that will have a recording of this webinar, the upcoming webinar schedule, and she also provides important updates about what's happening with the program and the system. So, for example, Thursday night we're going to do an upgrade, a pretty major upgrade to the system. So it might be down for a spell early Friday. Just keep that in mind. And the bottom line is you definitely want to look for the emails from Beverly. Okay. Also, if you have not created your profile on the community site, you absolutely want to do that. The reason is we're attracting more international investors. I'm going to be speaking internationally. I've received actually now I think 15 invites to speak internationally. And just so you know, I'm not going there to teach them how to invest in their countries. I do that, but more importantly, I'm teaching them how to invest in the U.S. because that's what they want to do, and they want to spend their money here. And these aren't people that have just $20,000. These people have like $20 million. So it's important for you to put your profile out there because they're going to locate you from that community site, and you don't have to pay for that. You don't have to pay referral fees on that, guys. So take advantage of that big time. In any case, welcome aboard to everybody. What I want to do is introduce my friend Sid Hameed, and we met last summer at the end of July at a mastermind event, and we hit it off right off the bat. You know how you meet somebody, you know you're like blood brothers, brothers from another mother, so to speak, and that's us. You know, different backgrounds but similar interests, and we have a strong faith, and we believe in coming from contribution and serving others, which the concept is prosperity through service. So I don't want to talk too much about Sid. I want to let Sid introduce himself, but I want to make sure you guys understand this is a big deal because he's going to talk to you tonight. It could be a number of things, but one of the things in particular is investing in tapes and buying notes, okay? And the important thing is you don't have to be a big hedge fund to do it. And individuals like Sid are able to do it, and so can you. So Sid, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, thank you, bro. Thank you, man.
Well, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, maybe take a minute just to give everybody a little bit of a background. Just tell them who you are, and then go ahead and jump right into your content. And I'll post some questions for you and things like that as we go through the webinar.
Okay, cool. All right, great. Well, I kept the presentation small because I want to have a lot of dialogue. I want to have questions. I want to have conversations. So this is just going to be just a short presentation. But the main thing is to ask questions and have a conversation about the process and things like that. Well, hey, I'm Sid Hameed, and I've been in this business of real estate since '89. So I started off in construction, building houses and just doing labor work and brick work, and then over time I learned about electrical, plumbing, and stuff like that. And I currently own a real estate brokerage. We're licensed in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I was with Keller Williams for a few years, and then I was with Remax. I bought a franchise, real estate brokerage franchise. I sold it, got rid of that, and now I have my own brokerage called Expert Real Estate Advisors Group. I have a broker that runs the brokerage. I'm the owner. And then I also have my home builder's license. So I build houses, and I've been an inspector for 18 years, a real estate inspector. And so I have multiple divisions, but I have multiple CEOs that run each division. So I have 4 companies with 4 different CEOs, 4 different profit and loss, income balance sheets, 4 different accounting systems. So my goal as a CEO is to be the visionary and to always be looking for deals. I'm a deal maker, and I like deals, and I like to spend my time on deals. And there's a lot of agents that just don't know how to do the deals and how to even get to the deals, how to analyze deals. And so that's one of the things I want to talk about is, I've done rehabs. I'm still doing rehabs. I have rental properties. I bought notes. I've been a hard money lender. So I've done all these things over the last 25, 30 years. But buying non-performing notes and becoming the bank is the best position to be in so many ways. And it took me many years to get to this point to really determine that, being the bank and investing in non-performing notes is the ultimate place. And it does take time. It does take a lot of knowledge and education and training, but anybody could do it. I mean, I was able to do it. I'm a construction guy. I bought a brokerage. We buy and sell deals, wholesale deals. We do the same thing with notes. We buy and sell wholesale notes. We also do loan modification on them. So we're going to get into the business of, how do you get involved? How do you get started? Who has the non-performing notes? Where are they? How do you get access to them? How I did it, how I got started in the business. And if you have any questions, again, this is an open discussion, so we'll go with that. So non-performing notes, as there's a first position and there's a second position. So what we buy is we focus on non-performing notes that are in the first position. There are asset managers and hedge funds and private equity funds that sell notes that are also the second position. There's a little bit more risk with the second position notes, and you have to buy a lot of them to get a few to actually pay out. But with the non-performing notes, it's a much better position with the non-performing notes, and you actually can get to control the asset, which is the house. And when you have the access to the house, you can do so many things with that property. You can do a loan modification with the current homeowner. You could, if the current homeowner is not occupying the property, you do the eviction process. If there is a tenant in there, do the foreclosure, hire a local attorney in that local state or the county. You get a local real estate agent to do a BPO, go analyze the property. And then I usually get an inspector to go with the agent, do an inspection on the property. And then we take it over if we need to take it over, but we like to normally do a loan modification first. We don't want to kick anybody out of the house. We want to be able to become the bank and start making that non-performing asset into a performing asset, and then have them get in the position of getting a credit repair and then doing a refinance, and then we get paid out, or selling that asset to a performing hedge fund and let them buy in it, or we just keep it as a passive income and just get the income coming in. So there's multiple ways of making income through investing in non-performing notes, and we'll get into that. And most of the non-performing notes, the people that are investing in this area are institutions, private equity funds, hedge funds, and private family offices. And a lot of these guys are the ones that are participating in this particular arena. Now, it's not easy just to break in and just start doing this kind of business. I mean, there is a learning curve. You got to kind of walk the walk, because a lot of these asset managers and these professional hedge fund managers, they could smell the BS, right? They could. So you got to be able to talk the talk, and you got to really understand, the process as well as just the lingo on how things are done. And what I recommend is just reading. There's a couple really good guys out there like Scott Carson. I joined his mastermind group about 5 years ago. There's a guy named Eddie Speed out there. He has some training. There's the Paper Source in Las Vegas. There's an event called the Paper Source where there's a lot of vendors and small equity funds and hedge funds that come. They're small brokers. They broker deals. You get to meet a lot of the law firms as well as the processing companies that actually process the notes once we buy them. So, I, over the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, I've spent a couple $100,000 traveling, going to New York, going to San Diego, going to Miami, going to these events, talking to these players, getting to know them, and then also buying the tapes. So the thing is, this industry is a very small industry, and a lot of people know each other. So the key in this industry is, if you're gonna get into this business, really get into it full time and be really focused and committed. Because if you screw up and you actually, you BS some of these asset managers, you could really ruin your reputation and your name very quickly. So don't overpromise things and don't get excited. Try to stay within your buying capacity. And if you could buy, 2 million or 5 million, or if you could buy 300,000, stay within your capacity and, just execute and buy it and let them see that you're in the position to actually take a takedown and you're a player. And then, you crawl before you walk, and then you'll be able to get in the position to get larger tapes and stuff like that. So over the years, doing rehabs, I've done hundreds of rehabs. I've built 150, 180 houses for some of the national builders. I've had rental properties in multiple states. What I've determined, buying notes is actually one of the best places to create a lot of wealth and passive income. We currently have assets in Florida, in Alabama, in Texas, in North Carolina, in Georgia. And then we have servicing companies that manage these assets for us. And then we receive the mortgage payment. Since we're the bank, we're not receiving a rent payment, we're receiving a mortgage payment. So there's a big difference being a landlord versus being the bank. So we're going to talk about, how you guys would get involved with these guys, with these boys that are playing this game. I mean, this is a game that's been going on for years, and you got to be able to understand the rules and the regulations and the players of the game and who's playing in this game. And the key is to learn through people that are already doing the business and align yourself up with them so you could avoid mistakes and pitfalls, because you could lose $500,000 very quickly, but you could also make $500,000 as well very quickly. So this is a totally different game, and the more you understand, the more knowledge you have, the more informed you are, the better you could play this game. And it's nothing but a game, just like rehabbing homes. It's a game. Being a real estate agent is a game. Being a real estate broker is a game. It's a matter of having the right people around you to be able to, balance things out and do your due diligence. So we'll talk about how I got started and why I decided to do the non-performing notes. So one of the things here is, once you do get the tape, once you do get the fund, how do you get the money, right? So everybody don't have $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million sitting to the side. One of the things that we do is we raise capital. We have a fund, a registered fund with the government, SEC, Securities and Exchange. And so we have a subscription, we have a PPM already in place. And we talk to a lot of investors that have money in the IRA account or the 401k, and then we get them to invest into non-performing assets, and then we give them a return on those assets. And we use QuickBooks to manage all the cash in, cash out, and the profit and loss, and the monthly statements and all that. And we have an online tool where the investor could log in, they could see what's going on with the court case, what's going on with the property. So it makes it really transparent. How do you get access to the tapes? How do you get access to the non-performing notes? Well, you have to call the asset managers and build relationship with these guys. And we use certain tools like Land Guide and Distress Pro. These tools allow you to find out which banks have what assets on their books that are in a default position, but it also gives you the names and the phone numbers of the asset managers that you could call and have a conversation with. And Distress Pro is a tool that allows you to do a little bit more due diligence, because when you're buying the notes, due diligence process is very essential, because you're making your money on the buy side, not on the sell side. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But building these relationships with these asset managers, it's going to take time. And you have to have a letter of credit. So if you have investors that's just going to give you $1 million or 500,000 or 200,000, you have a letter of intent, a letter of credit, proof of funds, to show these asset managers that you're in the position to execute, and you're in a liquid position to be able to respond. Because once they give you a tape to look at and analyze, the tape could have 100, 200 assets on there. It could have all over the United States. So you have to really narrow down, which states you want to focus in on and which states you don't want to focus in on. And you got to really look at your exit, because there's 9, 10 different ways of doing, exiting from purchasing notes. So you really got to have the understanding of your exit strategy before you go into the acquisition side. So,
hey Sid, if you don't mind, real quick, would you recommend, or what are your thoughts on partnering people? Because I can see on some of the questions here, people are, they're wondering, well, how can I get in the game if I'm really strapped for cash? And so a lot of them do partner on buying properties and things like that. Would you suggest that, or is it better to go at this like as an individual?
Well, no, I mean, what asset managers want to see is that you're liquid, right? That you have access to buy. They want to see your buying capacity. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is to raise capital, right? Is to find people that have IRA or 401k funds, and there's resources and there's data mining companies that you can actually buy a list from, and you could offer them 10% yield on their money. And if you buy the right notes at the right price, you should be able to yield anywhere from 23% to 30% on your return. And if you're paying your investor 10%, you use the investor's money to position yourself to be able to buy these assets. Because most people will not have access to, $300,000, $500,000, $1 million.
Right. Okay. Now, how about so when you look at a tape, let's say you're using Distress Pro. What are you seeing as far as the average? What you're actually paying? So let's say the tape has $10 million of outstanding loans on it. What are you seeing on average as far as what you're offering? Like how like pennies on the dollar? Like what would that? I mean,
well, right now, in the last 6-7 months, the industry has changed. Mm-hmm. Because the supply and the demand in the real estate market overall has changed, and there's so many more investors out there, and there's a lot of REITs that are buying, like BlackRock is buying a lot of assets across the board. So the margins have shrunk, right? So at one time, the margins were pretty good, 50 cents on a dollar, 65 cents. But now the margins have shrunk, so you have to be really careful in terms of which assets you actually get into. So the due diligence process becomes a lot more important. So the margins today, what I'm looking at, you could buy something at close to, 55 cents, 60 cents on a dollar today, whereas like 5 years ago, it was half that because there was a lot more inventory.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, I
Right?
appreciate it. Yeah.
Supply and demand has changed. Now, but there's still certain states like Detroit, Ohio, Alabama, Kentucky, Wyoming. There's a lot of these states that still have a lot of assets out there, and there's still a lot of shadow inventory that Washington Mutual, Countrywide, and these institutions had on their books that was carried forward, that they're still dealing with a lot of the bad paper. And the thing is, like every hedge fund or equity fund, they have their own resources. So Aquin Mortgage, for example, they sell the notes. PNC Bank sells the notes. Wells Fargo, Chase Manhattan sells notes. But they're going to sell in blocks of 50 million, 20 million, 10 million, 100 million at a time. And what happens is the private equity funds or the hedge funds are the ones that are in the position to buy those things. But what you have to do is build your relationship with the smaller brokers, with the smaller funds. So you may not be the second or third person in line, but as long as you're in line, you can still, get the asset before it hits the MRIS. By the time the agent gets involved, it's too late. It's way too late. So you want to be able to get the asset like at least 5 or 6 layers before the asset manager has determined that they're going to go ahead, get it listed with an agent. And so that's where making the phone calls and talking to the asset managers, building a relationship and understanding the lingo and the verbiage, so they know that you're not full of shit and you actually are a good solid buyer. Then it's building that relationship and nurturing on that relationship.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, by the way, Carol's asking, what is a tape? So a tape is really simply a block of mortgages, Carol. So that's what we're talking about here. But Sid's going to go a lot deeper because there's some interesting thing that Sid's been able to do because he's established a reputation, like being able to do a little bit of cherry picking. We'll talk about that in a minute. But John's got another question. Okay, if a tape is $2 million, does that mean the non-performing loan amount or the estimated appraisal value? So I guess so if you're looking at a tape that says it's 10 million, what does that actually represent? That's a good question.
Well, it could be, 50 cents on a dollar, right? It could be 40 cents on a dollar. Now, some states, like for example, California, you're not going to find any assets in California for less than 90 cents on a dollar. California is very, very tight market. There's real no margin. There's not a discount there. Florida's becoming a tight market. So we look at, working class neighborhoods. We look at American working class neighborhoods. People are going to work. We look at C paper, B- paper, blue collar type towns. So we look at areas where there's still a margin. So if we look at a $10 million tape, and out of 10 million, 5 million might be California, well, we're not going to bid on that because it's just too expensive and there's not enough meat on the bones. But then we're going to look at other states that there's working folks, there's working folks, and we could feel like we could get in there and do a loan modification. We could, hold on to the asset for 2, 3, 4 years and make it into a rental and things like that. So every tape will have a mixed batch. So it'll be all kinds of assets in there. Some will range from 80 to 90 to 95 cents on a dollar. Some will range from 40 to 26 cents on a dollar. So you have to define your market, which area you're going to play in, and then say, hey, I'm only willing to pay, X amount of price for these assets in Ohio or Alabama or Kentucky. You have to define that. So they're all over the place, and it doesn't mean you get a $10 million tape that the tape is worth 30 million. So you got to look at each line item and determine which ones you want to eliminate, which ones you want to keep, and then get a local agent to do a BPO. Go to Zillow.com, look at the neighborhoods, go to citydata.com, run your information on the city data, the job growth, the economic growth. Is the city or the state doing new projects, their new metro station? So you want to do a lot of research before you buy some of these assets.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so when they when a bank puts out there, like Chase Manhattan puts out a tape for sale, the number that they're putting on that is, I mean, obviously it's just like a property. That's just what they're asking for it. But what that probably represents is what they believe is maybe fair market value or book value in their mind. It might not be the full amount of all the mortgages, for example. Is that true?
Yeah. So you have to. So we we negotiate all the time, right? So just because they have a property on the bank tape, that the unpaid principal balance is 200,000, and the value might be the property may be upside down. The property may be upside down by 100,000. That's where we try to get our local agent in that particular city and town to go to the property, determine if it's vacant, if it's occupied, do an assessment, and then we could make them an offer. We don't have to go with whatever price is on the tape. They may have the value at $19,000, but you could offer them $9,000 if you could justify, why you think it's only worth $9,000 instead of $19,000, right? So
Right.
you got to be able to have justification and be able to submit the bid and say, hey, we want these 20 assets, but we want to pay, $9,000 for this one. We want to pay $7,000 for this one. We want to pay $18,000 for this one, and here's why. And then a lot of these institutions are open to listening, because the thing is, they're not in the business to, hold on to a bunch of assets. They're in the paper business.
Right.
They want to get rid of these assets. They want to move on to the next thing, and long as they feel like they have a fair offer, and keep in mind, when the market crashed, and when there was all the money that was going into the market, $87 billion a year, the banks got paid off. A lot of this stuff has already been written off, and they've already put claims against insurance companies. They've already gotten their money back. So at this particular point, a lot of this money is a lot of gravy money for the banks, because they've already been paid off on this stuff.
Right. Yeah, I learned that a long time ago that, I just assumed the banks were actually losing it on these defaulted mortgages, but a lot of times you're right, they're filing insurance claims, and they're getting paid back, and then they've still got the note to deal with that they can sell and get something out of it, So you're right, it's gravy. It's
gravy because the taxpayer in the United States of America, the taxpayer has picked up, this bad debt that was created by Wall Street, by Fannie Mae, by Freddie Mac. This is bad debt that was created. We picked it up, and they got bailed out when the market crashed from 2008 to 2011, 2012. So this right now, these assets have been sold multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get $9,000, they're asking $19,000. The value of that $9,000 property might be, $130,000. Well, there's plenty of meat on that bone, but you have to take into consideration. You got to hire your lawyer, foreclosure costs, and things like that, which is about $10,000 average. For them to litigate the case, for you to actually become the deed owner, and then you can flip it. You can flip that asset, just list it as a wholesale deal with the local real estate investment club. You could flip it to rehabbers. You could keep it. You could do, go in there, do cosmetics, repairs, carpet and paint, rent it out, and get yourself a mortgage payment. So you can do a lot of things with that particular asset.
Right. Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. So, okay, keep on going, and we'll see what other questions we got coming in.
Okay. All right. Cool. So one of the things is, I have on here is to create your pitch book. So a pitch book, is to basically show these asset managers, some of your capabilities, and to be able to show your past performance in terms of some of the volume that you've done in real estate. and you got to be able to um, get them to be able to see that you're actually a player and there's somebody you want to do business with. So we use LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, if you search secondary specialists or asset managers, you'll get a list of all these asset managers, and you can send them a LinkedIn request, communicate with them. And out of there, I've gotten a couple of tapes to review and analyze. So LinkedIn is a very good source. But one of the things that I do, I have a call center in the Philippines. So, we put out calls to the asset managers directly and try to figure out, what they have, if they have any smaller tapes that are 500,000, 800,000. And sometimes the banks could actually carve out a tape. So if you tell them that you're only looking for certain counties or cities, number of bedrooms or bathroom, and you want to be within a certain price range, and you can show them that you have liquid, you're in a liquid position, they might be able to carve out a tape as well, based on your relationship that you create with that institution.
Okay.
Right. So in the past, that's worked for us, but we bought like about 12 tapes now, 12 different times we've actually bought. So now, they look at us in a different position. So sometimes what happens is if somebody else could not close, they cannot get the funding for the tape that they allocated, and it'll become a distress sale, special sale, what they call. We'll get a call and say, hey, we need you to close in 10 days. We'll give you this at 25 cents on the dollar across the board. So a lot of times that will happen too, but you have to have the relationship with the asset managers in order for them to call you to make that kind of special offer.
Hey, Sid, by the way, John Barnes is on. He's and I used to have probably at least a dozen accounts with different asset managers around the country. I even had the big one. I had HUD. I was a member of NRBA. And what John's asking is, he said in the heyday back in 2007 through 2010, 2013. I mean, it was there was a lot of I guess behaviorally speaking, not a lot of nice behavior like at conferences and things like that. And people were basically buying their way in access with booze and parties and things like that. Is it any different with this? Like when you're buying the tapes, is it, like I know you personally, so I don't think you were going to a lot of parties and boozing it up and things like that. I mean, it's possible, but what's that like? Is it any different than working with the asset managers just trying to get individual properties to list as an agent? I mean, to me, it's completely different, but from your own perspective, what would you say about that?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, if you're just trying to take on as a listing and you're trying to get REO listings, that's a different type of relationship, because that's just a one-off type of thing. But if you're going in there to buy a large pool, you don't have to dine them and wine them. You just got to be able to perform. The bottom line is you got to be able to perform, and they give you a small window. So usually 10 to 20 days you have to analyze the assets, to put in your bid, and to be able to show your proof of funds and things like that. And then if you do win, you have to basically within 24 to 48 hours wire transfer them your deposit, so they could send you the collateral files and the allonge reports and things like that, so you could really get into your due diligence process at that time. But you keep in mind, when the stock market crashed in 2007 and 8, and Lehman's brother laid off over 26,000 stockbrokers, and a lot of these guys went into creating private equity funds and creating small hedge funds, and also Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. A lot of these guys actually funded like $50-60 million and created smaller equity funds and private funds to have to go after this market. So they created the market, then they created small funds and equity positions to go back and buy these assets at a discounted price to reposition and disposition these assets back into the market. So it's nothing but a big game. that's being played between Wall Street and the housing department. But the more information you know, the more knowledge you have, the better you could position yourself with these asset managers. I mean, I do go to events, I do go to dinners and cocktail parties and stuff like that, but that's where you meet these guys. Doesn't mean you have to go down there and buy drinks and all this stuff like that. But it's keeping things very professional, above board, letting them know you're a serious player, letting them know you're in the position to actually execute on a tape, and getting them to get you a tape. Having them actually trying you out and giving you a chance. And it requires networking. It does require you going out there meeting these folks, and I do that. I've spent money doing that.
Yep. Okay. Hey, Wanda's asking, do you have to buy a tape in its entirety? And I know that I think I remember from prior discussions you've been able to buy individual notes from in tapes and not have to buy the entire thing. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So if there's 80 assets on a tape, and let's say you cherry pick 20 of them or 10 of them, you cherry pick those, then you could just put your bid in for those particular assets that you really want. But the institutions and these equity funds, they don't really like it when you just buy one or two. They want you to buy at least 3, 4, 5 at a time, if not more. The more you buy, the higher you look in their eyes, and then the more stuff they'll send you, right? So if they see that you're liquid and you're able to execute and perform on 500,000 or 300,000, then they'll send you those opportunities. And so we did it. We started small. We bought our first tape. We bought 7 assets, 180,000, and out of the 180,000, we got 7 homes, and they were kind of scattered. They were in Alabama and Texas and Florida, but we bought them at a good price, and we made money on all of them. But as they got to know us, then we bought a $300,000 tape, and then we bought a $800,000 tape. But you scale. You don't need to go into this thing with buying, right away, massive amount of money. Buy small positions, and then exercise it and go through the motions, and then get into a larger position.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks.
All right. So, okay. So when you're doing your due diligence on the actual, you have your due diligence on the buy side of the tape, and then you have your due diligence on the sell side of the asset that you buy. So the main things that you want to look at is the taxes. So if the asset has already been sold at a tax sale, or is about to go to a tax sale, like a local county tax sale, so you want to be able to identify that. And the easiest way you do that, a lot of the counties are online. You could go online and you could find your local county, and you could put in the lot number, the square number, the address, and you could look at the tax records. You could see if it was sold, when was the last time the deed was actually transferred, the date, how it was transferred. So if there's 80 assets on the tape, and then once we look at the tax record, we would determine 20 of them have already been sold. We eliminate those. And then also what we do is we look at the liens to see what kind of judgments, mechanical liens, water liens, any other liens or things that are on the tape. We get a title report to make sure there's not anything significant on there, because all that has to be taken into your acquisition. We have bought assets where there was like $25,000 worth of taxes and back liens and mechanical liens on the asset, but what we did is we bid it very low on the front end, knowing that we would have to take that into consideration, plus another $10,000 worth of fees for the attorneys and the foreclosure. So, with the due diligence process, it's all negotiations at that point. Because if it has a lot of taxes and liens, you could choose to walk away from it, or you could choose to take that information and put it into your bid amount, and then bid appropriately based on the neighborhood and the location of the property and the value of the, if you're going to rehab it and things like that.
Okay.
Right. So, and then with the due diligence process, we actually, because we buy all over the United States, we normally get a local exterior BPO and an interior BPO if we could get into the house. And then for interior BPO, we'll pay $150 for 30 photos. And then usually we'll try to get an inspector to go with the agent to inspect the plumbing, all the mechanical, the roof, the structure, and get a full construction report back. And once we determine that, then we'll either determine if we're going to keep it or we're just going to go in there and put $25,000 into it and sell it for a higher retail price, or we're going to just list it as is with the local agent and then just get an investor to make a cash offer on it. Now, if we do keep it and the note becomes performing, they're starting to make their mortgage payment on it. Since we bought it at a deep discount, there's a lot of equity in the house. You could also leverage that note by refinancing it and then getting the cash back out that you put into the principal amount and then reusing that money somewhere else. So we've done that as well, where we'll take, if you put out $300,000, we may refinance some of those assets and get our $300,000 back out and then pay our investors off. And now we have these assets that are paid for. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. Hey, by the way,
are they getting this stuff, Gary?
Yeah, Natasha's asking on LinkedIn, should they research, let me get to the rest of it, should research a secondary market? So she's looking for LinkedIn context. What are some keywords you can use to search for?
Well, you could put in, in quotes, just put in secondary market. Secondary market is going to bring up asset managers and things like that. It's going to bring in hedge funds, private equity funds. You could put in just asset managers. It'll bring in some of those folks as well. And then what we did in the beginning is, we would just send out like 10 or 20 invites per week and just kind of chat with them. And some are nice people, some are pretty mean and nasty people, and some people won't even return your call. But it's a numbers game, you know what I mean? So if you put out 1,000 in 6 months and you actually hook up with 10 people, the thing is, you don't need 1,000. You only need 5 or 6 very good relationships to make it in this business. Mm-hmm. You don't need a whole bunch of people. You just need the right people that are willing to work with you, and they understand the fact that you're getting started, and they're willing to take that into consideration. So the key is just to be honest, be yourself, and don't take on too much. Only take on what you can really handle, because you don't want to, you don't want to cause a negative remark against you. You don't want to put yourself in a bad position.
Right. That's exactly right. So, hey, so John's asking, I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Says, it sounds like there's a chance that some of the assets on the tape will not be there once purchased. And I guess obviously that could happen because, a bank could go ahead and pull the plug on it and gain control at share sale. Then it becomes, REO. And I mean, I guess there's a number of things that could happen, but that's true, right? So you could look at a tape and some of the properties could come off of the tape, depending on, like maybe they could refinance. They could get the thing, the consumer could pay it off somehow or another. There's all kinds of things I guess that could happen, right?
It does happen. It happened to us, man. We spent like 5 hours. The guy called us up and gave us 4 days to respond. We spent all this goddamn time researching everything, doing the due diligence. We spent all this time on it, and about 65% of those assets were removed from those tapes. And so it was a waste of time, but it does happen. It does happen from time to time. But it's part of the game. It's just part of the note business.
Yeah. Yep. And Peter's asking, so Peter, it's actually BPO, not VPO. So BPO stands for broker price opinion, and that's where somebody like Sid or an asset manager will contact you via email or phone or whatever, typically email, asking you to go out there and do a report on the property, determine the value. So that's what a BPO is, broker price opinion.
Yeah, broker price fitting, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know what level everybody was at, Gary, so I just kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's okay.
But the thing is, people need to understand the lingo, because as you talk to these asset managers, you need to use the verbiage that's gonna, resonate with them.
It's very important. Yeah. And by the way, we've got the runs the gamut. We've got people who are brand new to people who have multiple streams of income already. So I think what you're doing is perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm a licensed agent. I own a real estate brokerage. And supply is tight. I mean, you could call on expires, for sale by owners, FISBO. You could do all these calls. Everybody's trying to get a listing, but right now there's a lot more investors out there. Because if you look at the last 7, 8 years, most of the supply was purchased by investors, right? Because if you look
Hmm.
at the job market is still slow. It's not like in the last 7 years people have gotten raises. Most people are still making less than what they were making in 2002, 3, and 4, right? So it's just the investors and the black rocks are buying out hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s worth of assets from the supply that's causing the market to go up. So there is a bubble coming, and it's just a matter of time. 2018 is what a lot of people are saying in the second quarter is when you're going to see the bubble starting to happen. But right now we're in a decent market in terms of supply and demand, and the average days in the market is like 35 to 45 days. Here in the DC Maryland area, things are moving pretty fast. And I'm sure in other areas like California and Florida, things are moving fast too. So, but
Yep.
it is coming back. And the thing is, if you position yourself with the knowledge and information now, and when the market crashes again, we're going to have all this inventory, and the banks are going to start to liquidate these notes. And you just want to position yourself with the knowledge and information. So you may not make money from it today, but in 2018 and 19, you'll be able to position yourself properly to be able to, make a lot of money.
Right. Okay.
Right? So
Yep.
okay, so on the due diligence, when we sell our assets, we have 9 different ways of determining how we're going to exit. So we always choose our exit first before we determine if we're going to buy this asset, right? So we look at the rental comps, we look at rental meters to see what the rental comps are. We look at the appreciation value in the neighborhoods. We look at see which play we're going to do with this particular asset. Some of them we'll just flip really fast just to get our money out because we bought it at a good price. Some of them we'll just hold. I mean, we have a pretty decent rental portfolio. We're getting almost $18,000 a month worth of cash flow coming in. And the mortgage company, we have a processing company that manages the mortgage statements and the escrow statements and all of that. And my goal is to be able to have at least 500 homes that are paid off all over the United States, where I'm the bank on and I'm getting mortgage payments coming in. And so I want to be able to teach people and show people they could do the same thing. It's just a matter of just getting the right mentor, the right coach, the right education, the right knowledge to be able to position themselves. So when the next wave comes, you'll be in a better position to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about being prepared. The funny thing is you know, a lot of people will think, okay, well, I'm okay right now. I'll wait and wait it out and see what happens. But the challenge is you know, nobody knows what day the Grim Reaper is going to come. So you always have to be prepared. It's just like in the Boy Scouts. The motto is be prepared. And the people who have noticed life who are the most successful, they're always prepared. So even let's say business is slow in our businesses, we don't just sit back and wait. We actually sharpen the blade. We sharpen the blade. We sharpen the blade. We sharpen the blade. And then when things pick up again, we're able to hit the ground running, where everybody else is just kind of in reaction mode. And it does take discipline and patience. And sometimes you got to learn this stuff from the school of hard knocks. But the fact is there's no better time than right now to learn this stuff and be prepared with multiple strategies, whether it's for yourself personally, for investors. I mean, a lot of these guys are forming their own investor groups, and their investors are going to be asking these questions. And now, thanks to you, Sid, for doing this, is they can share some of this insight with them. But in any case, keep going. I'm gonna check back here for questions. I know you got a few more slides to go.
Yeah.
And we're caught up on questions, so we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is like every day, I mean, like every single day, I spend about 2 hours to 3 hours reading. I read a lot of stuff. I read a lot of, global economic news with stuff that's going on with Europe, that's going on with Norway, with Russia, with China. I look at the trade numbers. I look at the oil prices. I look at the VIX. I look at the 10-year bond. I'm looking at all the moving components that's moving our currency, and I pay attention because it's a cycle. Every 10 years, it's a cycle. And if you're understanding the moving components of the cycle, then you'll be able to see it coming, and then you'll be able to position yourself so you could get in and then get out. So I spend a lot of time reading and analyzing and investing in myself, because the more I know, it's everything's a risk. I take a risk every day, but I take a calculated risk. It's all about calculations, and it's about making sure I don't get screwed. So I'm always calculating stuff. But anyway, so I mean, I just wanted to share this quick information about the note buying process. There's a lot of moving components to this, and I put this together today, and if people have questions and they want to get a hold of me, they want to talk further, they want to engage, I do have a free gift that I'm going to offer them, which is, there's certain states that you do not want to buy in certain states, and then there's other states that we love buying in, and then we'll be able to explain that. And then we have an Excel spreadsheet that you could use to be able to put your numbers and your information in there to determine which is the best exit strategy to purchase this note. So we'll send those guys. We'll send you guys that information if you text me. At that number. But if you have any questions, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer some questions.
Okay. Well, we have one here from Michael, and I think you just actually answered it. Michael's asking, how do we become the bank getting a mortgage? Are there books or resources on this? So Michael, I would definitely take Sid up on his offer here. I mean, there's his email address right on the screen, his phone number. I know that he's taught a lot of people how to do this. My dad lives in Northern Virginia, and I know some of the players in and around Washington D.C. and Maryland, and a lot of them Sid knows. So it's like a small world. So I know that what he does works, and I've actually been involved with it myself in years past at a different level. But in any case, there's a number of ways to make money in this, and I would say, take him up on the offer. Get some free information to start, and by the way, I said Michael's also asking any books you recommend from all the reading you've done.
Yeah, I mean, there's one book that I'm reading now. It's called The One Thing, and The One Thing is basically focuses on just becoming really good at one particular thing and building it out, and getting the revenue income coming in from there before you start a second thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm reading that, and then I read the E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited book.
Yep.
So I just got done reading that, and Good to Great. I've been reading that, and then just I have a lot of newsletters that come in from the Forbes magazine, from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. I read the news on there. I read the data from Department of Commerce. I read the data from the stock analysis of the VIX and the CPI and the GDP. So I really just look at a lot of data and just kind of pinpoint like what's really going on. And then I just, I have my own crazy way of doing things, but it works for me. My wife thinks I'm bipolar, and I just like doing what I do, and I really get into it, and I'm really passionate about knowledge and information. And I've lost a lot of money in the past, so I don't want to position myself to lose money. So I'm too old to make mistakes and too old to make, the wrong decisions. So I'm very careful and very conservative. So I just pay attention to what they're not saying, not what they're saying, but what they're not saying, and I
Yeah,
pay attention to that stuff.
I learned that too. Don't just listen to what people say. Ask this question yourself. What did they not say? What
Yeah,
questions did they not ask? And sometimes that'll shed just as much clues and information as what they did say and what they did ask. Yeah, Carrie is asking what was the third book. Carrie, I think the third book was Good to Great. So it was The One Thing, The
yeah,
E-Myth, and I've read both of those, and Good to Great, and I've read that one too. So, yeah. Excellent book choices. Yeah, I've probably read, I'm guessing close to 3,000 books.
yeah. There's a couple guys like you heard of Bill Gross. Like Bill Gross is an economist, so I follow Bill Gross. I follow a guy named Nubini. He's a Nobel Prize winner, economist. Muhammad Ali, he's an economist. So I now watch Sam Zell. So I listen to a lot of these guys because they understand the data, they understand the moving components.
Hmm.
Um, so I pay attention to that. I learn from people that are 30, 40 times smarter than me, and what moves they're making. So I try to make the same moves they're making and try to understand why they're making those moves.
Yeah, that's
You know.
exactly right. Yeah, I tell you what, the formula for success is actually quite easy. It's the first component is education. Then you put a plus sign. You add information. So once you have the education, you not only know what information you want to access, but how to actually use it. The third component is the one that requires us, which is taking action. So education plus information plus action equal sign results. That's what gets you the results. And where I see a lot of people fall short is they understand something. They get the education, they get the information, and the people who stay stuck, they miss the third part. They don't take action. It's the ones who actually take action that get the results. And I know it's scary sometimes. I mean, years ago, man, I was really conservative and hesitant because I've had successes and failures too. And I look back at the failures now as educational opportunities. But in any case, that's such a critical thing that you shared that, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it looks like we're through the questions. We actually kept up with them throughout the presentation, so that's a good thing we did that.
Yeah,
Um,
let me share a
but man,
story. Like,
I tell you what, I appreciate you doing this.
oh yeah, let me just tell a story. So when I got into the
Yeah, I
business,
was going to say, if you got words of wisdom you would share with everybody, that would be awesome.
I told my wife, hey, we're going to Las Vegas, and she's like, well, why are we going to Las Vegas? I said, well, I've been studying this note business, and there's a large event called the Paper Source coming at in Las Vegas. I'm going to go, and she's like, well, I don't know what it is, but okay, I'll go to Vegas and I'll gamble while you go get trained. So I went to the Las Vegas meeting the first time. I was so scared, right? I mean, these guys, there were hedge funds there were asset managers, there were banks. I didn't know what to anticipate, what to expect, right? So I went there with the open mind and I said, okay, I'm going to get in this business. I don't know how, but I'm going to get in this business. I'm going to get started and I'm going to make money at it. So I went around. It was a 4-day event, and I paid a lot of attention. I was always early at the events. I met a lot of people at network. I met the vendors. Just read a lot of books that they recommended. Then I went back the next year, and then I went back the next year. So I went like 5 years in a row, and I just kept seeing the same people, the ones that I saw that were real. Okay, so if you've been in this business for 5 years and you're coming to this event for 5 years, those are the people you want to build relationships with. So a lot of the tapes and the notes that I bought have been like private deals where the smaller private equity fund or the hedge funds, they can't do anything with it. They want to get rid of it. They had buyers that fell off. They didn't have the cash to close, and they'll call you. They're like, "Hey, Sid, if you buy these 3, I'll give you these 2 for free." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So it's about building relationships, and you do have to go and meet these guys and invest your time. Like here I wrote down, you have to go to these events and you got to pay to play the game. So I've spent $5,000 to get into an event. I've spent $7,500 to get into an event. But the people that I met and the relationships that I created, one deal alone, I get my money back, right? So you got to play to get into this game, and it does work, but you got to be consistent and you have to be committed to it.
You've got to, once there's an old, what's I forget that. Oh, Goethe. Goethe was a poet, German poet. Said when you make a commitment, the divine providence kicks in, and the right people show up at the right time, saying the right thing, doing the right thing, providing the right help. And it does take faith, but not blind faith. It's faith based on your belief in yourself, and you're getting the education, you're getting the information, and then you're taking action. And it's amazing how good you feel, by the way, once you actually take that step. It's amazing. People hesitate sometimes, and they finally put pen to paper. It's like a sense of relief.
Yeah.
So
well, it's like riding a bike, man. It's like, you got to just get on it. And the more you fall down, the better you get.
Yeah. And I got lots of scars to prove that. So in any case, we're getting lots of thank yous here, man. People are appreciating what you shared. I mean, that was a lot to put in an hour. I hope this opens up some eyes for people and to see another possibility for themselves. And I appreciate you being willing to share something with them too. Wim, I'd like to have you on again at some time in the future, just to talk about not just taste, but your own personal investing and the cash flowing properties and property management. We have a lot in common. We've learned to leverage what our core activities, which is investing, to generate multiple streams of income. And I love meeting other people who've done it, because it's just not just reaffirming, but you learn more. I mean, you never can learn too much,
Oh
So,
yeah, man. For the first thing is I thank the Lord for waking me up and giving me another 24 hours, right?
yeah.
And then the second thing is time management. I don't take any meetings at all. I only take meetings that I want to meet with. And I don't take any unnecessary phone calls that I don't have to take. I'm very selective with my time because time is money. And I like to go on vacation and enjoy my life too. So, there's money to be made by I've created systems and processes and people, in the right divisions to be able to run the businesses while I could focus on creating better relationships and nurturing relationships.
Right.
So anybody could do this business. It's just a matter of, if you really want to do it and get focused. I mean, I did it. Shit. I mean, I'm not smart, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I was at high school. I think I got out of high school with a 2.0, 2.0 average.
Yeah.
In any case, hey, so again, man, I'll give you a call tomorrow. I'm going to be flying actually to Washington D.C. My dad's having his 80th birthday this weekend. I'm going to be in Charlottesville Friday night, and then Saturday night my dad's. But I'm not enough time to hook up. But I'll give you a call, and Beverly's going to send you a recording of this too, so you can use it, to send it to your own folks. But I want to speak for everybody. I want to say thank you for doing this, and also thanks to all the people who were on the webinar, participating and asking questions, because that's how you get the knowledge. You got to ask questions to get the right answer. So, in any case, thanks again, Sid, man. I look forward to it, and I know we got a lot more to talk about.
Okay.
On the business end of things. So I'm going to give you a call and talk about that too. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night and peace and blessings.
Thank you very much, Sid. Okay, everybody, you have a wonderful night, an awesome weekend, and we will see you next week.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.